and everyone's.
All right, I'll start admitting people. Welcome, everyone. Go ahead and get settled. We'll begin in a few moments. All right. I'll go ahead and get started and I can turn it over. So good evening and welcome to tonight's live virtual program. I'm Amber from the Adult Services Department here at the library. Thank you for joining us this evening. I have a few housekeeping items to share before we start the presentation. Tonight's program is scheduled to run until 8 p.m. During the program, all attendees will be muted, so report any technical issues you may have in the chat. Your chat messages will only be visible to the hosts. There will be a Q&A session after the presentation, so if you have a question, you can enter it at that time in the chat. And if you enter any during the presentation, we're just going to hold the questions into the end. It'll be easier that way. So once we get to the end, we'll address as many audience questions as we have time for. Tonight's program is also being recorded and it'll be available to watch on the library's YouTube channel and the League of Women Voters YouTube channel about a few days after this ends. And so without further ado, I'll turn things over to Ellen Lafferty.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this informative evening. My name is Ellen Lafferty, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Livingston County. I want to especially thank the Howell Carnegie Library's tech support provided by Amber Carnahan. This allows us to provide this educational program from the comfort of our warm homes on this incredibly cold evening. The League of Women Voters of Livingston County are pleased to host another educational evening for you. For those who are new to our public forums, the League is proud to be a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, neither supporting candidates or parties at any level of government. But we're always working on vital issues of concern to our members and to the Livingston County public. Be sure to listen through to the end of tonight's presentation, where you're going to hear some exciting upcoming events that are happening with the League. To explain a little bit about tonight's program, the League of Michigan established their position regarding solid waste management back in 1972, and that encourages the reuse of all salvageable, tough word, materials. This aligns perfectly with the work of Recycle Livingston, a nonprofit, mostly volunteer organization that has been serving the Livingston County community and beyond for almost 35 years. I'm pleased to introduce you to our guest this evening, Julie Cribley, one of the founding members and current director of Recycle Livingston. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you, Ellen. It was a very nice introduction. Okay, so hello, everyone. I'm so excited to talk about recycling. I can talk recycling all day long. I am an avid recycler. A lot of the patterns of my life are developed around anything that can be recycled or reused or repurposed. There's just so many nice R words that I absolutely love. You know, reuse, reuse, reduce, recycle, reimagine. So I want to talk to you a little bit about where Recycle Livingston came from. As Ellen said, we've been here serving the community and beyond. We do have people from outside the county that come. We are one of the few nonprofit recycling drop-off centers still available in Michigan. Part of the reason that is because recycling drop-off centers are expensive. They could be if we had to hire staff to run our site, but we have been so blessed with volunteers. So let me just quick add, if you know of anybody or if you've ever thought about volunteering yourself, please come support us. Most of my volunteers are 65 plus, and it's getting a little challenging for them. So with that being said, we will be closed tomorrow due to the cold weather because we don't ask anybody to volunteer on those days. But most of the people you see at Recycle Livingston are volunteers, and some of them have been volunteering since the beginning, which is so incredible, isn't it? So always help us spread the word that recycling is important and it can only happen with help. The reason Recycle Livingston is still alive and well is due to these volunteers because we sort our material, meaning every material that we accept for recycling goes to someone different. Most of our vendors that come to get our material are in Michigan, so we're very happy about that. We've also vetted them so we know that they are indeed recycling the material that we are giving them. Part of why they love our material is because it's clean. Curbside programs are wonderful ideas. And I remember when they first came up thinking, oh, what a great idea. Make it so convenient. How can we say we're no longer willing to recycle? Because coming to Recycle Livingston is a little challenging at times. You have to bring clean material. It has to be sorted. We ask that you stay in your car. We close during cold weather and holidays. And we're only open Wednesdays and Saturdays because those are the only times we can ask enough volunteers to help us run the site. So Wednesdays are 10 to 4:30, Saturdays are 9 to 1. And with that being said, please always keep in mind that we do close for bad weather, holidays, and mechanical breakdown, because those happen sometimes too. So if you're ever interested, all you have to do is call 1 hour before our scheduled opening times. Again, Wednesdays, 10 to 4:30. And Saturdays 9 to 1. And it will always say on the answering machine we're closed, if indeed we are. If you reach the answering machine and it doesn't say we're closed, then you can trust that we're open. So did I mention we'll be closed tomorrow? I think I did. We also have a webpage, recyclelivingston.org, that is kept updated and has all kinds of information about us. So if I don't cover something tonight, or you have a question that somehow we just don't get to, please feel free to visit our webpage. You'll find a lot of stuff there. So briefly, some of the materials we take are all the things you would think, but where we've expanded just recently is we take a lot more glass. We now have a glass vendor who actually takes our glass and gives it to someone who makes it into fiberglass insulation. Now, to be perfectly honest, it's not my favorite use of recycling glass because glass is one of the few items that can be recycled forever. If we would recycle all of our glass, we would never have to create any more. And so that's opened up the door to a lot of different types of glass. So we can take all the food and beverage container glasses that you would expect in all colors. The only thing we ask is that you make sure all the rings and caps are removed from the tops, keeping in mind that once again, we are sorting our material and giving only one material to each vendor because that's what they want. And it has to be that material only. So just think about that with everything, that everything you put in, if you decide to come, if you already come, great, we love you. We are so happy to share our recycling adventures with anyone who would like to come and join us. But however, again, I'm just stressing the need to make sure the material is sorted. So the new glass that we're now taking that we were not before, we can now accept window glass, but unfortunately any frames have to be removed. Shower door glass, let's see, candle glass, if it's got minimal candle wax left, drinking glasses, flower vase glasses, perfume glass. Unfortunately, that doesn't include Corelle or dishware because that's a different material once again. And so we have to stay with the kind of glass they can use. So, that includes all the glass that we can think of, right? So it's pretty exciting. We love adding new materials. We accept plastics number 1 and plastics number 2. Now, there was a time where we were taking 1 through 7 plastic. And I can honestly tell you, when I first came back as the director of Recycle Livingston, which has been close to 9 years now, I used to be out on site and look at the 1 through 7 plastic recycling and think we have become part of the problem, because a lot of people were like, well, this is a plastic, I'm sure. And they brought it, and a lot of times it made it into that stream of material, which would render it almost unusable. And then when the whole world changed a while ago, with China no longer accepting our material, quick story, recycling used to be very popular because China was buying everything and they were paying really good money for it. So it was a good time to be in recycling. But unfortunately, because curbside programs are not very clean, and that's the majority of the material they were getting, they warned us 2 years before they decided to stop that they were no longer going to take our material because it wasn't clean. A lot of garbage was messed up with it because we took advantage of shipping it off. And when China shut the door, that's when we saw the big scramble because everything changed. A lot of US markets for materials had dried up because they couldn't compete financially, which is an old story, right? That it's cheaper in China. So we didn't have a lot of sources for material. So we really had to think hard about what we were going to accept. Now, I knew there was still a market for number 1 and number 2 plastics. And so that's when we made that change. And it needs to be sorted because that is the only way it will be accepted without being charged a lot of money to recycle it. So let's see. So number 1s and number 2s, we take newspaper still. We take mixed paper, which is a wonderful category because it takes a lot, incorporates a lot of material. It's magazines, books, just about any paper that you can think of. And like your cereal boxes and your Kleenex boxes, if you rip those open, if they're white inside, that would go with mixed paper. If you rip them open and they're brown inside, that would go with cardboard. Of course, cardboard is just off the charts anymore. I don't know if you were aware, but we recently were able to complete our new building, which was really spectacular for us. When we started in VG's parking lot in 1989, and our very first drop-off, we collected 7.5 tons. Wow, it really showed us that people wanted recycling in Livingston County. And it was so fun because everybody was so excited. Can you imagine 7.5 tons on our very first drop-off? We are now averaging just a little under 400 tons a year. That number is down ever since the COVID years because things really changed, but I'm slowly seeing that climb up. And it's again why I'm kind of making a bigger push for volunteers because there's a tipping point there where if too many people come at once, their wait is pretty long and people are not as patient as I'd always like them to be. So it's an interesting problem to have that our recycling numbers are growing, the volumes are growing, but it's putting quite a strain on everybody who's working there. But long term, our goal with the new building that we built is to try to become open every day of the week with paid employees instead of volunteers. And we can help establish that with some of the changes that are heading our way. I know I'm not hitting everything we accept, so please visit our webpage for that. But I have some very exciting news. We were very involved, Recycle Livingston as a group, with the writing of our solid waste plan. The solid waste plan is what tells the county how we are going to deal with our trash. It also outlines how to site a landfill. So it's a very important document. And in 1990, when we wrote it, the county, when I say that, they were not interested in incorporating recycling or reducing or composting or any alternative to trash. And they have always negotiated with other counties to take our trash. So what I've seen is kind of an attitude sometimes of, oh, we don't have to worry about it. It leaves the county. So I'm really proud to say that we're doing our best to convince people that just because it's going away, it is not away, and there's much more we can do. So what I mean is the governor of Michigan has signed into law a requirement now that every county has to update their solid waste plan. Once again, when we wrote ours in 1990, it did not incorporate anything about recycling or waste reduction or anything that would be viewed as helpful to our environment. So we have a new chance. It's going to take, the state's allowing up to 3 years. They're actually giving some money behind it because it isn't a long and expensive process. But the new law means that we are no longer going to call them solid waste plans. We're going to call them material recovery plans. And they have to incorporate a certain goal to meet toward recycling, as well as goals for composting. It's pretty exciting to me as a longtime recycler who has lived in this county for a while now. I would love to see us grow in our understanding of how to take care of our planet. To me, that would just be a wonderful change. And that's why I know that Recycle Livingston has a very important role to play here, because part of the plan says if not everybody has access to curbside, you need a drop off. They're actually going to stay in this plan that you have to make recycling available, accessible to everybody in the county. And if you can't, you have to have a drop. So that's going to kind of change how people view Recycle Livingston, and will be the perfect place for people to come because we can help educate. We can take a lot of material. We're just doing all kinds of new things as we grow. So the new building, we started in VG's in the parking lot. We became so successful that the city of Howell knew they had to move us because we were only doing one Saturday a month, but we were pretty much clogging up Grand River, which, didn't make anybody happy. And the city came up with an idea of letting us use their old, was it Road Commission building. So, the city of Howell, we just love them for all the support they have given us, because without them, again, I don't know if we would still be here. It's all these players that came together to make this happen that are still working together, which is phenomenal. So the city told us we could use this piece of land, and they help us with it. They help us plow it, and they put the fence up for us and did things that are really, really important to recycling. And I'm always hopeful when people come to recycle that they actually go use downtown too. So it's a symbiotic relationship. And as a result, we were given an old mobile home. And wow, were we thrilled to get this old mobile home, because it gave us an office. Well, all these years later, so I start with Recycle Livingston as a volunteer. I stayed with them for quite a while. Then I went off and started my own recycling business called Community Recyclers. By the time I sold it 10 years later, I was up to 35 tons a year, and I was actually bailing out of my barn, and it was just me. I tried to warn you that I was a true recycle nut, because I'm very proud of that. And then I came back and was on the board of directors for many years, and off and on with other ways to support Recycle Livingston. And then back in 2015, I learned the director was retiring and thought, oh, I guess I'd love to do that job. And that's when I stepped back in. But as a result, one of my first goals was to replace that trailer. For many, many reasons, it had become almost uninhabitable. And at some point, when I'm ready to turn the mantle over to some other young, exciting person that wants to get into recycling, I want to hand them a really nice place to work from, because they deserve it. We all do. And so we applied for a grant from the state of Michigan. Once again, Governor Whitmer getting behind recycling in a way we haven't seen in a long time. Although I should back up, because Snyder actually is the one who encouraged the new laws that put money into recycling. At first, we were going to do it through raising the tipping fees, the cost to throw trash away, because it's very inexpensive in Michigan. So inexpensive that it's cheaper to come dump here from Canada and other states than it is to dump it where they live, which is pretty sad. But the waste industry is pretty strong, and they lobbied against that. So instead, we set some money aside from the internet sales tax. And we were able to apply for it. It took us 5 years from the time we were awarded the grant to actually complete the building. But I can tell you, in this frigid weather, are we ever grateful? It is such a wonderful, warm place to be. Plus, we were able to buy one baler. So we finally own a piece of equipment, so we can actually process our own material, and we can go find different vendors for it. Currently, most of the vendors that are on site that collect our material, we do so in their containers. And so, for the most part, if you collect it in their container, they pretty much feel like that's their material. And the markets really fluctuate. So it's easy to think that you can make money recycling, but that no longer is completely true, because the markets fluctuate so greatly that you have to have other sources of income. And so that's why I'm glad, as one of the founding members, that the group in the day that we started was smart enough to create a nonprofit so that we can at least allow people a tax deduction, and it allows us to solicit funds. And because between the donations and our membership fees is how we survive. The sale of the material, if it's up there, boy, that's just a cherry on top of the cake for us, but it isn't something we can count on. And I have to tell you, honestly, our building is so nice that I worry people are going to look at it and think, oh, they don't need any help. But it's not true. The state, which was our tax dollars actually, of course, is what helped pay for the building. And also the Kellogg Family Foundation gave us a sizable amount to help cover the match, because this particular grant required a 25% match. But we have just feel so blessed that we are moving into the future feeling more solid. I mean, personally, I'm still amazed that Recycle Livingston is still here, given all the obstacles they have faced over the years, and having watched a lot of the other nonprofit drop-off centers drop off the planet. But let's just spend a minute talking about curbside programs. People often call me and say, I'm concerned that the material in my curbside bin is not getting recycled. And what I always say back is, well, if you stop, it's for sure going in the trash. And if they're throwing it away, okay, it's going in the trash, but at least you've indicated to them as a company that you are interested in living this way. And let's face it, pressure from the public is how we change things. So please always keep using curbside if you have it available to you. But what I always suggest is that you think about the other items that you would like to recycle, not put them in your curbside bin because you can't, like household batteries or styrofoam. Those are not allowed in a curbside program. We also, the first Saturday of every month, have the Red Barrel program available from 9 to 1 to accept sharps and unused medications. We also accept clothing. Usable, find a way to somebody who needs it. Non-usable ends up being shredded and made into stuffing for furniture. So that's a very clever program we're proud of. We also offer latex paint recycling. Every can, well, let's see, the cost is $3 per gallon, $1 quart size, or $10 for a 5-gallon bucket. And of course, the first thing someone wants to say is, well, can I just dump all the paint in one container then? And all I can say is the company would like to discourage that, because it's actually recycling the paint. And because they need to choose what colors to blend together to get the kind of paint that they're looking so that they can sell it, we need to respect that. And it is expensive to recycle latex paint. Often when you start recycling a new material, it is costly because startup costs and the demand for it, they're just not great yet. Although I can tell you, we painted the trailer in recycled paint and it held up really well. I was so impressed. So, and also that is a program we help supplement when we have items that cost money to recycle, way above and beyond what a normal load costs. We do have to ask for help with that beyond membership fees and donations. So once again, we do ask people to pay for the paint recycling. We also have televisions we accept for recycling and electronics. We have categories and costs associated with that. If you bring us appliances, we're happy to take them. If you're a member, those do not cost you extra. If you are not, there is a $10 gate fee to come and use our site. But if that's what works for you, to just occasionally come, $10 is a great way to do it. And we're happy to help take whatever material you're bringing. There is no limit to how much you can bring when you come. Of course, if you're a business, it does cost more because, of course, businesses generate a lot more recycling. Eventually, we'd like to target more businesses. So part of why I'm so excited to get to talk about Recycle Livingston is so we can just help spread the word that businesses who might be interested, especially in like cardboard and paper, that maybe this would be a good idea for them compared to what it costs for a dumpster. And of course, the impact on the planet, which is always our goal, right? What impact does this have on our planet? Oh, so it's funny because since I can't hear any of you, I have no idea if I've covered where you would like to go. So don't be afraid to start putting comments down, because if there's something you'd like me to touch on, I would be so happy to do so. So I don't know what else to tell you about recycling. Let's see, what else do we take? Oh, we take confidential documents for shredding. We're really happy with this program as well, because once the documents are shredded, they get recycled. That's an extra cost as well. We try to give breaks to our members. So for your membership, which is $30 for a senior membership, $40 for a regular household. Currently $130 for business, although we are seriously looking at raising that one, because if you could see the loads that come from a business, you'd realize that, wow, that's a lot of work. And now that we have a baler, we are going to look when we get good at baling. We're not yet, because once again, being volunteers, we have to learn. We will be able to take cardboard maybe on a separate day, and it would just be a cardboard recycling day. And so we'd be open one more day of the week, which is really exciting, be able to offer our services more. So anyway, just stay tuned. There's a lot of new things coming over the next 6 months to a year. I'm sure of it. And I'm sure you're going to hear more about the work being done on the solid waste plan, material management plans that we're going to be writing for our county, which is, like I said, really, really exciting. A few other things, we can only accept cash or check, because we still do our best to keep all costs down. So we've never taken credit cards, so we're not paying that additional fee. We try to be very, very, very good with all the money that comes our way. And one of the questions was, do we receive funding from anyone else? No, we do not. We are totally self-funded. The grant we applied for was the first money. Well, it was the second time we got a grant, because when we first started in 1990, we got a grant from the state of Michigan to buy a vehicle so we could go drive around and pick up material. But that, long-term became very expensive. And then, and then this new grant that we got helped build the building and buy the baler. But we have not received funding from any outside source for probably 25 years now. And when you asked if there's a new volunteer site that I know that just started in Langsburg, because they came and toured us to try to, learn, from me, anything that I could help them figure out. I know that they're volunteer, but any other sites that I personally know of have turned into businesses for profit, which is truly the way to make recycling the most successful. But it's a different way to do it. And the thing that I love about Recycle Livingston is because we're not in it for profit. Of course, we'd love to end the year in a little of the black area rather than the red, but we're not doing it for money. So you're never going to hear us say we're not going to take an item because it costs more to get it recycled. Because things have changed greatly. We did not used to have to pay transportation. We do now. We are charged $200 a load for all the loads that go out of our compactors. Cardboard currently is the only item we're getting paid for in the compactor. We get paid $15 a ton right now if it's compacted, which is why my goal was to get a baler, because once it's baled, the company we're dealing with will pay us $55 a ton and not charge transportation. My goal, however, is at some point to move away from dealing with Green for Life, because after all, they are a waste hauler, and move toward dealing only with people who are recyclers and let them buy our material and work with us. And we still get paid for metal, but that price varies a lot as well. I'm trying to remember what else we get paid for as a material. Oddly enough, we do get paid for the clothing, but it's like 2 cents a pound. We get paid for the glass, and that I think is 2 or 3 cents a pound. The plastics are just starting to pay now, but again, it's 1 cent to 2 cents a pound, which you have to crush a lot of plastics to get any money at that rate. So it's why we always sound like perhaps we have our hand out, but in order to keep the program running strong and keep finding new markets for materials, like when we expanded our glass program, when they first started taking our glass, they weren't paying us at all. but now they're so happy with the source of the glass, they finally stepped up and said they'll give us 2 cents a pound. But when we ship out the glass, it's, I don't know, 5, 6 tons at a time. The check's like $37, which of course is kind of fun to get, but it doesn't go very far. So I, of course, am paid as the director because somebody has to be at the helm and, keep things moving. And we have some site managers that get paid. We have a lovely greeter and we have an office assistant. But our site managers are only getting paid $15 an hour. And when I see what McDonald's is paying, sometimes it's like, oop, I get it. But at the same time, we are keeping our costs as low as we possibly can so we can stay true to our mission, which is to get as much material as possible out of our landfills. And so again, when I talk about volunteers, we're always looking for site managers too. Now, it's not a popular job for a lot of people because it's outside. It's only Saturday, one Saturday a month and maybe 1 or 2 Wednesdays a month. It's not a lot of work. So it's great for retired souls who are looking for something to do, or maybe some young people, if we could please get them more involved and excited about what we could do together, that would be great. So that's just another ask out there, that if you know of anybody that you think would fit in that mold of being happy to be outside, happy to be sorting, recycling, and helping us change, the way people think about our materials, that would be great. And I guess the only thing I'll throw out there is the one thing that I have done my whole life is when I buy something, I ask myself, what is going to happen with this item when I no longer need it? And I know zero waste is really, really hard, maybe even impossible to get to. It's not unachievable in big steps, though, if you start asking yourself that question when you buy something. And just think like that what is going to happen to this item? So I know Ellen has my brochure that she's going to share her screen with, so everybody can take a look at it. And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm trying to pull it up. So please go ahead with your questions
Okay.
while I do this.
Yes.
Now it is a little bit harder than I expected.
Televisions go anywhere from $25 to $55, depending on the size of the screen. Televisions have a lot of hazardous material in them. Mercury, lead, cadmium, and the list really does go on. And we deal only with vendors that are R2 certified, which means they guarantee us that every one of those materials will be pulled out of the televisions properly and properly recycled. And that is very important, in my opinion, when we're talking hazardous material. We do give members a $10 break on the televisions, and we also contribute because it costs a lot more to get these items recycled than what we're asking for, but we just need some help. So let's see the timeline on the plan. We have been given as a county 3 years, and it will take all of that 3 years, because first, how that will work is the county commissioners have to appoint a committee, which I've been working with Rob Spalding, our solid waste coordinator, to start selecting and thinking about people that would be well served on this committee. And again, what I love about it is it specifies that you have to have recyclers on the committee. You have to have people involved in composting. You have to have actual business people who are running a recycling business on the committee instead of just waste haulers. Because when we wrote it in 1990, it was waste haulers that were on it. So like I said, it's going to take a while to get there, but it's such a worthy goal. And then once the commissioners appoint the committee writes the plan, and then it has to go back to the commissioners for approval. Then it has to go to all of our governing bodies, all of our townships and cities, to seek approval from them. And that's why this is the perfect place to talk about this, that when that point comes, I'd love it if Ellen would ask me to come back so we could spread the word to start attending our local meetings and encouraging them to really read the plan and support it. And then once they approve it, then it gets sent to the state for approval. Another real highlight, though, of the new plan is it actually has deadlines on it now. last time when we wrote the plan, it did not have deadlines, and it languished for a long time in our local governments while they kind of tried to decide how they felt about it. If we languish behind too far, the state will eventually say, okay, fine, we'll approve it. And if we've written a good plan, that would not be a bad outcome. So I see a lot of good things coming with this. But as a director of Recycle Livingston, I recognize how important my expertise now is going to be to the writing of this plan. I've been involved in recycling for, I don't know, forever it feels like. And I know a lot, and I want to bring it to the table to make sure that we truly get a plan that takes recycling seriously. I mean, when we started in 1990, when I said it was fun, it was. And then it kind of changed. And now it's more of a, people have lost their faith in the system. Even the bottle returns are down, the numbers in Michigan. And people still keep trying to overturn that law. It's incredible to me that anybody would want to change the bottle deposit law, but because Michigan has the gold standard and we were one of the first states to actually implement it. So wouldn't it be cool if Michigan become a leader again in environmental practices? So I'm really looking forward to it, although I understand how much work it's going to be.
Julie, are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
The
ma'am, I
handout?
am.
Oh, perfect. Okay, then I'll leave you to it then.
Okay, well,
We do have one question so far.
okay.
What are counties around us doing for recycling, and do recycling organizations share ideas?
Absolutely. For a long time, I was on the Michigan Recycling Coalition Board, which is a wonderful group of people in Lansing, and their whole focus is to bring recyclers together. And so we spent a lot of time together talking to everybody out there. It's how I learned a lot about the state. And so we do talk. We have forums we can put questions out on. If we have a material we're looking to find a way to get recycled, things like that. So that is definitely out there and strong and growing, which is wonderful. And I think I lost track of the other part of that question. So could you put it up again for me?
Yep. So it was, what are counties around us doing for recycling, and do recycling organizations share ideas?
A lot of the counties around us rely on their curbside programs. Some of them have drop-offs, but they're unmanned. And unfortunately, for the most part, an unmanned site is a very difficult site to make sure that the material is actually getting recycled because they are so contaminated. So it's just not the best way to recycle is an unmanned drop-off site. Now, you may have heard of facilities that are called material recovery facilities. The short word for it is MRF. There are several of our waste haulers that have built some very beautiful facilities that have state-of-the-art equipment. Emmett County is an organization that was really smart. They are just the model here in Michigan. They just got into the programs and got the government, their local government, to support them. And so they got the contracts for waste hauling and recycling. And they've built the same kind of programs that our waste haulers have. And they can be very effective. So again, when we circle back around to curbside programs, if they're going to the MRFs, they're getting sorted. And a lot of that, most of that material is getting recycled. I just recently toured the facility that GFL has just completed. And while this number sounds daunting, I think they told me they were recycling 400 tons of material a day there, and about 30 tons of it was trash. And that's only simply because, again, people are not putting the right material in their curbside bin. But if you look at those numbers, those are astounding. And again, that at one point, all was going into a landfill. So we are making great strides. And the waste haulers, whether it's just greenwashing because they want us to support them, I don't think it matters as long as they're starting to really recycle. And you know, if they're putting millions of dollars into these facilities, they're not going to not use them. So again, we're moving forward in ways that are pretty impressive. I just tried to make my cat get off. Sorry, it was getting too heavy. Plastic film bags, you have to bring back to the stores that accept them. And again, I do know that there are businesses that are actively seeking film plastic that is baled. If we had the capability of, if we had more balers and more staff, I would definitely start collecting film plastic because I know a company in Canada that would buy it from us. But again, you have to remember that every material you collect You have to have volume to interest a vendor. So if all I can generate is 3 bales a month, they're not interested in that. But if I could really bale, like a Myers or a Kroger can, with the right material, we got to remember that they're absolutely doing it because they now have sources of people that want to buy it. So again, it's really critical that you go to their websites, you read them, and you only bring them the film plastic that they're asking for. And while I know we all want to recycle everything, it's not really going to get recycled if you're putting material in there that they cannot use. It's very, very important to keep our streams clean.
We have another question. Is there any discussion to handle household food waste, either curbside or at Livingston Recycle?
Well, there is a wonderful company called My Green Michigan. And they're actually in Brighton. They're all over the state really, because that's another group that started with different composting facilities around the state. And someone had this brilliant idea for them all to join together. So we have Tut Hill Farm Recycling in South Line, which do wonderful work. We have My Green Michigan, which is picking up, I think currently only from like grocery stores and restaurants. I don't think they've gone to a residential program as of yet, but I do know there is a residential collection program in Lansing that's starting to get geared up and doing really well. So I know we're working toward that. And once we actually are better at what we're doing and we expand the way that I hope to do in the next 5 years, I would really like to look at a food collection program. But there's a big, strong ick factor with food collection. And it's even more critical that people don't leave straws and plastic spoons and things in there that are not food. So that's a hill that's pretty high to climb in terms of contamination. Because Recycle Livingston, even for all our requirements, we still end up with about 30% every site day of trash. Because we still have members who do not sort properly, bring us stuff that we cannot recycle, and we have to sort it and we have to throw it away, which is a real bummer. But that's just seems to be the way of the world. But I do hope to have a composting demonstration area within a year, so at least people could stop and take a look at what it's like to compost. We also are going to have another composting class coming up in the spring. We held our first one last fall, and we'd like to make it a regular spring and fall event. We'll have Amy Freeman running the class, who is just a master composter, and she's really fun to listen to. And we will also bring in, let me get the words right. There's Five Heartworm Farm. They're in up north in Birchwood. I forget the town, but I know it's up there. Anyway, but you can find them through us because we have some of their worm food. Well, it's actually worm poop, and it is one of the most wonderful fertilizers out there, completely natural. And this whole company, once again, it's Five Heart Worm Farm. You can look them up on Facebook or Google them, and we're carrying their products, and they will also be in our composting class, because right now all we can do is help encourage people to be backyard composters. The Livingston County Solid Waste Department always has a compost bin and rain barrel sale in the spring. And so anybody can compost if they'd like, because you can keep it contained and do it in such a way that you won't have animal problems. Because if you're doing it right, there's no smell, and you end up with some of the best dirt you've ever seen. And it's so good for our soils. There's every reason to start making composting part of our life and make it important. And again, I just can't stress enough how excited I am about this material management plan requiring that there be composting available to people. And so that's why you see companies like My Green Michigan starting up, because they can see the tide coming. I can honestly tell you that I've tried. I could get them here in Howell for restaurants and grocery stores if I could find some restaurants and grocery stores that are willing to pay for it and are interested. But composting, interestingly enough, still has the same reaction that recycling used to when we started with, oh, there's that nut again talking about what? No, we throw it away, leave us alone. So I got nowhere so far. But let's put that out there, that if you know of any restaurant or grocery store that you think would be open-minded to something like this, please pass that information along to me. As you can see, our webpage and our email are right there. Our mailing address, please always remember, is different just because we have a post office box. Because we're not open every day, we don't want our mail just sitting where people could get at it. So it's Post Office Box 226, and that zip code is 48844, because that, of course, is at the post office. And you can see our wonderful little thing, hey, like how much fun it is to volunteer. And all this information is on our website. So please feel free to view it whenever you get a chance. And we love questions. So feel free to call anytime if you're wondering about something. We do our best to try to know where other things can go, items perhaps that we can't accept. I mean, when we were talking about other drop-off sites, there's one in Novi that's run by a program in Southfield that is funded by the local government. And it's a non-supervised site, but I happen to know they have a very strong MRF, and they do take the material and do a pretty good job of sorting it. And they take a lot of the plastics we can't and other items. So again, that's on our webpage. You are more than welcome to visit that and get that information.
There's a question about the composting class. Someone was wondering if it's possible for today's participants to be contacted about it. Is there a link I can share in a follow-up email? Like, is it on the Recycle Livingston website already? Information about that?
No, because we
Okay.
haven't set the date yet. Because
Okay.
we just finished our building at the end of October. And it took everything I had in terms of brain power and space to pull it all together. And so I was lucky I even had a composting class in the fall, because at the time I was doing it, I thought, wow, this was an interesting time to create this class. But what I saw was how important it is to the community, because it was very popular. So just send us an email and say you're interested, and you will go on the list. I'm thinking probably end of March, early April, in that time frame. And we'll be, of course, having it in our new building. And so the more the merrier.
And I'll include that contact information again in a follow-up email I send later this week.
That would be great. Thank
Yep.
you so much.
Any other questions you want to put in the chat?
Well, I hope I didn't sound too bossy. It's so easy for me to get excited about talking about recycling, and just want to encourage everybody to just look at your life and ask, what else could I be doing? In fact, for my New Year's resolution, that's where I always go, is what else can I do better? And I always find something. And so we can just keep trying, right? All together. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Julie, for this excellent presentation. It's so insightful and enlightening for sure. And it's wonderful to have you in our Livingston County. We're really blessed to have you representing Recycle Livingston for us. Please consider volunteering for this wonderful organization that makes such a positive impact on, is it material management? You said it's the new name for it in our county?
Material management plan instead of solid waste plan.
All right, material management. We'd love to have you back when things solidify. Let's get through this busy election year. It's going to be a little while, but absolutely, we'd love to have you back.
Good. I'd love some more about it when I know more about what I'm talking about too.
You're pretty impressive so far. The role with that, I'm very impressed with that, how much, well, your years of experience are very apparent in your presentation, and you talk the talk and you walk the walk. So thank you.
You bet.
And those who've joined us tonight, again, there's going to be a follow-up email that's going to include the link as well as the PDF handout that I shared tonight. And please pass it along to your friends and neighbors and family. Get them going. I wanted to update everybody too, what's ahead for the league. At the end of this month, we have Brighton City Clerk Tara Brown and Brighton Township Clerk Joe Riker. They're both going to be joining us on Wednesday, January 24th at 7 p.m. for an update on voting rights as a result of the passing of Prop 2 in 2022. And this is going to be in person at the Brighton District Library. Also, this is all on our website, and it's going to be on our Facebook, so you don't have to write all this down. You can go to our website to find this information. Next, we're having our in-person book club on February 15th at 1 p.m. in person, again, at the Howell Carnegie Library. We're going to be discussing the book called The Supermajority: How the Supreme Court Divided America by Michael Waldman. Again, please join us. And we have a very exciting announcement tonight. This is our first time sharing this. Our special guest for our next virtual public program is going to be Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel.
Oh.
She's going to be joining us to discuss the latest legal status of Line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac, PFAS, and other challenges to the 170 Livingston County lakes. We are also going to have a local chemist, Dr. Stephen Brown, joining us, who's brilliant and has presented nationally on the PFAS discussion. This is going to take place on Tuesday, February 20th, with registration available soon through the Howell Carnegie Library. Again, mark your calendars, watch the league and in the library's webpage. And last but not least, we're going to have Connie Conklin, who's the director of the Livingston County Mental Health. She will be our guest on Tuesday, March 16th. Again, we're going to have a virtual public meeting through this Howell Library. It's going to be 7 o'clock at night on March 16th. So I'm going to get to the end here. 2024 is a presidential election. Nobody can not be aware of what's going on, which means our voter services work is going to be in overdrive for the league. We're putting in place volunteers to handle voter registration, voter education events such as candidate forums, and plain old get out the vote activities. If you're interested in joining our efforts or simply supporting our work, please consider joining the League of Women Voters of Livingston County. Go to our website, just Google League of Women Voters of Livingston County for more information. And finally, you can also follow what's happening with the League by following us on Facebook, or you can sign up for our emails through the League of Women Voters website. There's a little tab at the top that you can sign up for our emails and really keep up to date on what's going on within the League. And usually that's a monthly newsletter that we send out. Again, I want to say thank Amber for hosting tonight and providing us this opportunity to host these virtually on this really cold night. And Julie Cribley, thank you for your work and thank you for your information tonight. We really appreciate your joining us.
Oh, well, it's so fun to hear what you guys are doing. I mean, that's
we're
impressive,
busy.
Ellen. Really, it is. That's very impressive.
Well, you know, we reached out to the Attorney General's office, and you don't know until you ask. And their office said yes, and we were just floored. So we're very excited. The Howell Library is upping. Usually 100 people can attend these virtual meetings. For this 1 month, they're upping it to 500 just for this event. So of course, it's going to be very informative and great information to share to the public. We're going to collect questions ahead of time, allow people to submit questions ahead of time, but there's so much going on in the Attorney General's office, and we only have a little bit of her time, so we're looking forward to it. So again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Stay warm, stay healthy, and see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.